believe my Senate colleagues will see the wisdom of keeping the current sanctions in place. I yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.
Mr. President, I'm here with my colleague, Senator Van Hollen. The two of us are going to make a unanimous consent request to reopen government. Let me just say, and I know the distinguished majority leader is here, we're on day 25 of this tragic, outrageous, needless, and dangerous partial shutdown. Senator Van Hollen and I have met with government workers, and we've heard their account. They can't pay their bills. Mortgages are going without payment. I heard yesterday from a federal worker that they can't pay their children's extra activities at school for dance lessons. They can't help their relatives deal with their problems, that they are postponing needed health treatment issues. I read last week on the floor of this body a letter from Kristen Jones and Brad Starkey, air traffic controllers, who explain how they can't take care of their family needs. 800,000 people are furloughed without pay or working without pay. 30% are veterans. Small businesses are shuttering their operations because they depend upon government workers for their business. From cleaners to restaurants are finding that they don't have the business they used to have. Kevin Hassett, the chairman of the White House Council on Economic Advisors, indicates the economic impact is $1.2 billion per week on our economy. We heard about small businesses that have to shutter employees because they are not getting their federal partnerships. I use the example of the Senior Services of America, 176 employees they laid off because of the USDA and Forest Service can't honor the contracts. This is not, people can't close on their home mortgages because they don't have pay stubs that show their income, or the FHA can't certify loans under HUD being shuttered. Core missions are being compromised. I talked to air traffic controllers yesterday, people in air safety. They don't have their full complement. They're professionals. We have the most professional government workforce in the world, and they're dedicated professionals. They're going to do their job. But we're asking them to deal with half the number of employees and without getting a paycheck. That's outrageous. So, Mr. President, this shutdown has to end. The President wants it. We're an independent body. We're a co-equal branch of government. We can open up the government. Yes, we can negotiate border security, but we have to have government open. You can't negotiate under circumstances where the President is holding the country hostage and he undermines his own negotiators. It cries out for Congress to take the lead. I agree with Senator Graham when he says that we should open government and then let us negotiate using the regular process of Congress to debate the issues of border security, including immigration issues. We are a co-equal branch of government. Two bills are on our desk. Both have passed the House of Representatives. I'm going to make a unanimous consent in regards to H.R. 21, and my colleague, Senator Van Hollen, will deal with the rest of government. H.R. 21 are 6 appropriation bills. 6 appropriation bills that are not related to the issue of border security. They've already been acted upon by this body. They are not part of this dispute. It's financial services and general government. It's agriculture. It's interior and environment. It's transportation and HUD. It's state and foreign operations. It's commerce, justice, science. They passed this body either by a 92-6 vote for the Appropriations Committee or unanimous or near unanimous by our Appropriations Committee under Republican leadership in a bipartisan manner. We need to reopen government. So therefore, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of calendar number 5, H.R. 21, making appropriations for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2019. I further ask that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there objection?
Object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President, I just say in response to my distinguished majority leader, I just don't understand why the United States Senate is missing in action. We're a co-equal branch of government. Let us speak about opening government. There are members on both sides who understand that we can debate border security and we can reach agreements, but you can't do that with a partial government shutdown. This is President Trump's shutdown, and now, with the majority leader's objections, the Republicans in the Senate are assisting this shutdown.
Mr. President.
The majority leader is recognized.
Let me repeat again what I've said now for some 3 weeks. The solution to this is a negotiation between the one person in the country who can sign something into law, the President of the United States, and our Democratic colleagues. For the Senate Republicans to participate in something that doesn't lead to an outcome strikes me as not what the Senate ought to be involved in. We've got an important package of bills that have been held up during the Senate shutdown on top of the government shutdown related to our colleagues, our friends in the Middle East, the Israelis, related to the Syrian civil war and all the atrocities that have occurred. There's business to be done here in the Senate. The way to solve the government shutdown is for the administration and our good friends in the House, in the majority, and Senate Democrats to reach a legislative solution. When that happens, I'll be more than happy to call it up because we know we'll actually solve the problem.
President,
The senator from Maryland
just
is
very
recognized.
briefly in response to my friend, the first priority should be reopening government. That needs to be our very first priority of business. And in regards to the legislation the leader is referring to, let me point out that those bills could have been passed in the last Congress, where the Republicans controlled both the House and the Senate. But the majority leader made a decision on floor time that it was not a priority to be considered in the 115th Congress. And let me also say in regards to Israel, they'll benefit from the Foreign Ops Appropriation Bill being passed, which is part of my unanimous consent request, an additional $200 million that's being held up because of the shutdown caused by the president, now assisted by the Republicans in the Senate.
The senator from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. The issue here is that the Senate really does need to do its job under the United States Constitution as a separate and co-equal branch of government. Now, last week, Senator Cardin and I were right where we are today, here on the floor of the Senate, asking consent that the Senate immediately take up and vote on the 2 House bills that are on the Senate calendar as we speak, and pass them and send them to the President to reopen the government. Last week, the majority leader blocked a vote on that. He blocked consent to take up those bills to reopen the government. Since last week, much has changed. Much has also stayed the same. Here's what's changed. The impact and harm of the shutdown is growing by the day. It's metastasizing around the country. Here are just some headlines. Quote, the cascade of shutdown problems grows each week. Another headline, this is ridiculous. Small business owners can't get loans as shutdown enters day 20. That was day 20. We're now on day 25. FBI operations damaged as shutdown continues. FBI agents group says shutdown affects law enforcement. They point out it's putting those on the job at greater risks because those who are furloughed that support them can't give them the backup they need. FDA continues to not do their routine food inspections. American veterans make up 30% of the federal workforce. They're being disproportionately hurt by the shutdown. We just heard reported that the White House economists are doubling their estimate of the harm done to our economy each week. It's already in billions of dollars, and they're saying it looks like it will be twice that much as this thing grows exponentially. Services shut down for our American people. 800,000 federal employees as of last Friday. got pay stubs like the one I'm holding in my hand. This is one that was for an air traffic controller. Starting Friday, 800,000 federal employees are not getting paychecks. Hundreds of thousands of them are on the job working. Hundreds of thousands of them have been locked out of work. And what they tell us is they just want to get back to work and do their job for the American people. If you look at this pay stub, look at net pay, it says 0. Big fat goose egg. I can tell you these federal employees are getting bills. They're getting their mortgage bills, they're getting their rent payments. They don't say 0. They stay the same. And so here you've got 800,000 federal employees who are unable to make do, missing mortgage payments, missing rent payments, missing their monthly installments on community college payments. And on top of that, you have all these small businesses that do work for the federal government who are beginning to go belly up, and their employees are being told not to come in to work. So since Senator Cardin and I were here on the floor just last week, things have gotten much worse around the country. But here's what stayed the same, Mr. President. What stayed the same is we have it in our power today to take up 2 House bills to open the government. Now, I was listening to the Majority Leader say, well, you know, the President says he's not going to sign it. But we are a separate branch of government. We are the Article I branch of government. And I'm holding in my hand right here the bill that Senator Cardin asked us to vote on today. And I think the public needs to know what's in it, because what's in it has already been supported overwhelmingly on a bipartisan basis by this United States Senate. Here's what's in this bill. It's got provisions to open about 5 departments of the U.S. government that have nothing to do with Homeland Security. We passed that by a vote of 92 to 6. 92 to 6. The President says he doesn't want to sign it. He can veto it. 92 to 6, that's veto override, big time. It's also contained in here bills that passed the Senate Appropriations Committee by a vote of 30 to nothing and 30 to 1. So that's what's in here. Bipartisan bills. And so the question for this body as a separate branch of government is, why in the world are we not going to allow a vote to reopen government on provisions that we've already agreed to on an overwhelming bipartisan basis? In fact, a veto-proof margin. So the President can say that he's not going to sign it. That's his business. That's the executive branch. But for goodness sakes, let's do our job here in the United States Senate. Because every day that goes by in this growing harm, this Senate is more and more complicit. And we are an accomplice in the shutdown. Now, I know President Trump likes to talk about the fact that, you know, he's done things that no other president have done before in the history of the United States. Well, this time he's right. He's got the longest shutdown of any president in the United States. He said he would be proud to shut down the government if he didn't get his way. I know that no senator here, Republican or Democrat, is proud to shut down the government, certainly for the longest period in history. So let's do the right thing. Let's do our job. Let's stop just saying the president is the only one who can handle this. We can handle it. And I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of calendar number 6, H.J. Res. 1, making further continuing appropriations for the Department of Homeland Security. I further ask that the joint resolution be considered read a 3rd time and passed, and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid on the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there an objection?
Object.
Objection is heard.
Madam President, Democrats continue to talk